Have you ever felt like your whole life collapsed in a single moment? Like everything you built shattered? Like the people you trusted the most vanished? Like every plan you made just exploded in your face? And the silence? It wasn't peaceful. It was haunting. But what if I told you that this breakdown was the beginning of your breakthrough? That what looked like your end is actually the setup for your comeback? Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you won't just believe in your comeback, you'll feel it stirring deep in your soul. And if you're ready to rise from everything that tried to bury you, then go ahead, subscribe right now, because this is the channel for people who are done staying down. Let me take you back for a second. There are seasons in life that don't just bruise you, they crush you. Moments that feel like God has gone silent, when your prayers echo back at you like you're shouting into a void. People walk away, jobs fall through, your bank account is empty, your heart even emptier. And the worst part? They counted you out. They whispered behind closed doors, it's over for them. But what they didn't know is that God doesn't operate on public opinion. He operates on purpose. Because while the world was writing your obituary, heaven was writing your resurrection. See, God doesn't waste the pain. Not the betrayal, not the tears, not the sleepless nights when you cried into your pillow so hard you couldn't breathe. He uses it all. Every moment that broke you, He's using it to build you. Because when God brings you back, and He will, it's not going to be small. It's not going to be private. It's going to be loud, public, undeniable. Your comeback is not for your ego. It's for His glory. And if you're still breathing, then He's not done. Not even close. Now let me ask you something that might sting a little. When was the last time you saw the closed door and thanked God? I know, that sounds insane, right? But what if that rejection was your redirection? What if the delay was divine? Every detour, every setback, it wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Because God's not just trying to fix your life, He's forming your character. He's aligning people, opportunities, timing, things you can't even see yet. And I know that sounds poetic, but let's be real for a second. You're probably watching this in the middle of your storm. You don't see the comeback. You just see chaos. And maybe part of you has started to wonder, what if this is it? What if I never bounce back? Let me be the voice that breaks that lie. You are not finished. You are being forged. Because hear me loud and clear. The struggle you're in today is producing the strength you'll need tomorrow. And if you're starting to feel that flicker of hope again, good. Because the next part of this journey is about shifting how you see your setbacks. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Drop a comment below and say, I'm ready for my comeback. Speak it. Declare it. There's power in your words. All right, let's go deeper. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was the best thing that ever happened for you? That betrayal, that loss, that moment where your plans blew up and your heart broke. Yeah, that one. What if it wasn't meant to destroy you? What if it was designed to reveal you? Because here's the truth. Pressure doesn't just crush, it clarifies. You find out who you are when everything falls apart. Not when life is good and the sun is shining and everyone likes you, but when it's dark, when your phone stops ringing, when the applause fades. That's where warriors are made. And guess what? You're still here. So maybe, just maybe, you're stronger than you thought. And maybe God's not asking you to be perfect. Maybe He's just asking you not to quit. Every single setback has one purpose: to set you up. That sounds like a cliché until it becomes your reality. And it will. Because the greatest stories of triumph, they always start with hardship. Let me say that again for the people in the back. There is no epic comeback without an epic setback. Your job is not to understand every detail of what's happening right now. Your job is to trust that God is in the details. And if you're willing to trust the process, even when it hurts, then what's coming is greater than what's gone. But I know, waiting is hard. When the doors won't open, when the calls stop coming, when your dream feels like it's drifting further away by the day, waiting feels like wasting. But it's not. It's working. Because God doesn't rush preparation. He's not interested in giving you a platform your character can't sustain. So he waits. Not because he's punishing you, but because he's building you. And if you've been feeling stuck, let me challenge you with this. What if the stuck isn't a cage, but a classroom? What if this moment of stillness is your boot camp, where you're learning to fight spiritual battles with a sharper sword, where your roots are growing deeper? Because when the storm comes again, and it will, it won't shake you like it used to. That's growth. And if you've already come this far, why would you stop now? Let me pause for a second to remind you, if this is hitting home, share this video with someone who needs to hear it too. Don't let this message stay with just you. Someone out there is hanging by a thread, and your share might be what pulls them back up. Let's keep going, because I need you to hear this next part. When the time comes, your comeback will make sense of everything that never did. Every no, every closed door, every friend who ghosted you, every night you spent praying for a breakthrough that didn't come, all of it will suddenly fit. Because when God restores, He restores better. He doesn't just give you back what you lost. He multiplies. That's why this isn't just a bounce back. It's a level up. And it's coming. But you gotta stay in the fight. Don't quit 5 minutes before your miracle. Don't walk away when you're this close to your breakthrough. If you're still here, then you're still in the running. You were never out. Just count it out. But God is about to count you back in. And it won't be quiet. It won't be small. It'll be epic. Stick around, because in the next part, we're diving into the real meaning of trusting the process and why your waiting season is actually the most powerful part of your comeback.
Let's talk about something we all wrestle with but almost never understand in real time: the process. Nobody likes it. Everybody wants the promise, the breakthrough, the reward. But the process, the waiting, the silence, the uncertainty, the feeling like nothing's moving, that's the part we want to skip. But here's the truth. The process is not punishment. It's preparation. It's the training ground. It's the fire that purifies the gold. The workshop where God carves away what's not meant to go with you to the next level. So, before we move on, let me ask you, have you ever felt like you're stuck in a season where nothing's happening? Like you're in limbo, forgotten, stalled out? Then type, "I'm in the process" down below, because naming your season helps you own your story. Now here's what most people get wrong. They think, because they can't see movement, that there's no progress. But your life is not a TikTok video. Spiritual growth doesn't always show up in visible ways. You're not stuck. You're being still. You're being shaped. Because if God gave you everything you were praying for right now, would you be able to handle it? Let's be honest. Maybe not yet. And that's okay. Because this process, it's building the capacity to carry what's coming. It's developing the maturity to sustain the miracle. You don't want a fast blessing. You want a lasting one. And those don't come without the grind, the growth, the gut checks. Sometimes the delay is the deliverance. Sometimes the waiting is where God does His best work, in the silence. Not because He's ignoring you, but because He's doing heart surgery in you. Think about this. Before God delivers a promise to your hands, He prepares your heart. And sometimes, the deeper the calling, the longer the preparation. If you've been in the process for a while, don't be discouraged. God's not late. He's strategic. He's precise. He's making sure everything and everyone connected to your destiny is lined up at the perfect time, because what's coming for you can't be rushed. You know how a masterpiece is painted? Layer by layer, stroke by stroke, and sometimes you can't even tell what it's going to be until the very end. But the artist knows, and he doesn't make mistakes. So what feels like a mess right now, it's just the underpainting. Don't judge the process too soon. Now, I know what you might be thinking. How do I stay hopeful in a process that feels like it's crushing me? Let me hit you with this. Purpose is born in pressure. No diamond is made without time and tension. No oil comes from an olive unless it's crushed. You're not buried. You're being planted. And you're going to rise stronger, wiser, more powerful, more grounded. So take a second right now. Send this video to someone who's in a silent season. Someone who needs to know that the delay doesn't mean denial. Because maybe you're not the only one who needs this message. Let's keep going. Here's another tough truth. The process will expose parts of you that can't go to the next level. Ego, impatience, entitlement, bitterness, unforgiveness. These are the weights that will sink your future if you carry them forward. So the silence, it's not just a break, it's a breakdown of everything that's holding you back. God is refining your character so the blessing doesn't crush you when it shows up. You want the business? Then He's building your discipline. You want the relationship? Then He's developing your capacity to love through storms. You want the influence? Then He's teaching you to lead with humility and integrity. Every season you're in is a classroom, and the faster you learn the lesson, the quicker you graduate. But if you keep complaining through the class, you'll keep repeating the same test. You know how that goes. That's why you've got to flip the mindset. Instead of asking, "Why is this taking so long?" start asking, "God, what are you showing me in this?" Because that question, it changes everything. It pulls you out of victim mode and puts you in student mode. And students grow. But listen, I won't lie to you. Sometimes this process is lonely. The friends fade. The support shrinks. The phone goes quiet. You start wondering if maybe you messed up. But that's exactly where God wants your attention. Not on the crowd, not on their validation, but on Him. Because when all the noise fades, you can finally hear the voice that matters. And it's in that silence that He reveals who you really are. He peels off the labels. He undoes the lies. He shows you who He made you to be without the filters, the faking, or the fear. So if you're walking through the dark, keep walking. Don't set up camp in a temporary storm, because you're not being punished. You're being positioned. Positioned for a comeback that will not just restore what you lost, but multiply it. And when it hits, everyone will know. Not because you'll be shouting it, but because the fruit of your process will speak for itself. I want you to picture something. Close your eyes for a second. See yourself 6 months from now, standing in the place you prayed for, stronger than ever, smiling, not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. Can you feel it? That's not fantasy. That's faith. And faith is the bridge between your now and your next. So build it, one step at a time, one prayer at a time, one surrendered moment at a time. Because the process isn't killing you, it's preparing you. And when the promise comes, you'll be ready, not just to receive it, but to sustain it. because you'll have grown into the version of you that can handle what you once only dreamed about. Before we move to part 3, I want you to do one thing. Type, "I trust the process" in the comments, and hit that like button if this word is for you. Your process is holy, and your comeback, it's going to be glorious.
Let's talk about something that has crushed more dreams than failure ever could: the opinions of other people. Yep, that sideways glance, that comment that sounded like a joke but cut like a blade. That silence when you expected support. That moment when you realized they don't see you. They don't believe in you. And some of them, they're rooting against you. But listen closely. Just because they counted you out doesn't mean God did. In fact, the most dangerous thing your enemies could have done was leave you underestimated. Because God does his best work in the lives of those the world forgets. Before we go deeper, let me ask you, have you ever been dismissed, overlooked, or doubted? If you have, comment, "They didn't see me, but God does." Let it be your declaration today, because this message is for you. Let me remind you of something vital. Your worth is not tied to their approval. It never was. From the moment you took your first breath, God stamped purpose on your life. Before they applauded you, before they followed you, before they ever said your name, God knew you. And the creator of the universe never created anything without intention. You are not an accident. You are not disposable. You are not less than. You are chosen. So when they say you're not enough, you smile and say, "I'm not yours to measure." When they ignore your progress, your potential, your passion, don't shrink. Don't try to prove them wrong. That's not your mission. Your comeback is not a revenge story. It's a redemption story. This isn't about making them regret doubting you. This is about honoring the God who never did. Now, I know it stings. Rejection always does. Being overlooked can mess with your confidence. But what if I told you that being overlooked by people is often a sign that you're being hidden by God? Not to punish you, but to protect you, to preserve your character, to prepare your heart. God hides what he's still shaping, because premature exposure can ruin the masterpiece. You weren't forgotten. You were being formed. You weren't dismissed. You were being developed. Because when the time comes, when God reveals what he's been building in secret, no one will be able to deny it. The same people who didn't see your value will be astonished by your growth. And here's the beautiful irony. You won't need to say a word. Your fruit will speak. And fruit can't be faked. That's why you've got to stay rooted in the truth even when they reject you. Rejection is redirection. Sometimes God will allow people to walk away not because you're not valuable, but because your destiny can't be fulfilled while you're still seeking their validation. Let that sink in. He will strip the room of everyone who doesn't belong in the next chapter of your story. Because where you're going, not everyone can go. Some people were only meant to be part of the setup, not the celebration. And that's okay. Let them go. Let them doubt. Let them talk. Because God is writing a comeback that doesn't need a cosign. If this is speaking to your spirit, go ahead and hit that share button right now. There's someone else feeling small today who needs to be reminded of their divine worth. Be the person who lifts them up. Let's keep moving. Think about David, just a shepherd boy, not even invited to the lineup when the prophet came to anoint the next king. His own father didn't think he was worth calling, but God saw, God called, God chose. And in the same way, he sees you. Even if no one's clapping, even if no one's calling your name, heaven is still watching. You don't need a crowd to confirm your calling. Your Creator already did that. Let's be clear. Favor isn't always visible. Sometimes the most favored people are the most hidden. Sometimes the most powerful work is happening underground, just like a seed. No one claps when it's under the soil, but the moment it breaks through, everything changes. You are that seed, and the soil you're in, it's not a grave, it's a garden. You're not buried, you're planted. Let that shift your mindset. They didn't see your value? God did. They laughed at your dreams? God didn't. They said you'd never make it? God said, watch this. You're being cultivated for a season they can't see. And when the time comes, you won't just bounce back, you'll break through. And not for the applause, not for the likes, not to show them up, but to glorify the one who lifted you when nobody else would. Your comeback will be so undeniable, so anointed, so clear, that even your enemies will have to admit that was God. So, here's your reminder. Stop trying to prove yourself to people who were never meant to understand your purpose. Start living like someone who's already approved, already chosen, already called, already equipped. Because the people who count you out, they don't hold the pen. God does. And your story, it's far from over. In fact, He's just getting started. Before we close this chapter and head into part 4, I want you to take 5 seconds to do this. Type "God didn't count me out" in the comments. Say it out loud, write it, own it. And don't forget to tap that subscribe button if you haven't yet, because the next part is powerful. We're going to talk about faith as the fuel of your breakthrough and how to keep moving even when nothing around you seems to change.
Let me ask you something, Ra. What do you do when you've prayed and nothing happens? When you've believed with everything in you, but the doors stay closed? When you've shouted, whispered, begged, cried, fasted, and the silence is so loud it makes your faith feel foolish? If you've ever been there, you're not alone. But I've got some truth for you today. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God isn't moving. In fact, most of the time, the greatest breakthroughs begin in the invisible. The Bible says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Not seen. That means your faith is working before the fruit shows up. Faith isn't passive belief. It's not just hoping something changes. Faith is active trust. It's movement, even when nothing else is. And if you're walking by faith right now, even in the dark, type "I'm still believing" in the comments. Because heaven takes notice when faith shows up, especially in the silence. Now listen, faith doesn't mean you'll feel confident every day. Faith means you keep going even when you're shaking. It means you don't need all the answers to take the next step. It means you pray not because everything is perfect, but because you believe in the God who is. You don't need to see the outcome to keep obeying. You don't need applause to stay committed. Faith is when you sow the seed without proof of a harvest. Because here's the truth that most people won't tell you. You can be full of faith and still feel afraid. You can trust God and still cry. You can be walking in obedience and still feel like you're wandering. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. And it makes your faith even stronger. Because faith that survives the drought, that's faith that changes destinies. Let's take a moment. Think about how many miracles in Scripture started in seasons of silence. Abraham believed for years with no child. Joseph sat in prison with nothing but dreams. David was anointed king and then sent back to tend sheep. Jesus waited 30 years before his public ministry began. Faith doesn't rush. Faith waits. Faith builds altars in the wilderness and says, even here, God is worthy. And when God sees that kind of faith, He moves. But maybe not the way you expect, maybe not the way you want, but always in the way you need. That's why you must keep believing, especially when it's hard. Because the moment you stop praying might be the moment before everything shifts. And the moment you feel like giving up might be when heaven is getting ready to release what you've been waiting for. Faith activates heaven. Faith breaks cycles. Faith unlocks what fear keeps chained. So don't just sit in your storm. Speak into it. Speak life. Speak truth. Speak future. Say, I will not stay here. Say, this is not the end. Say, I serve a God who finishes what He starts. Because here's something I need you to hear clearly. Faith is a weapon. And when you use it, mountains move, chains break, doors swing open. But even if they don't, even if the answer is still not yet, faith keeps walking. Because faith isn't about the outcome. It's about obedience. It's saying, God, I trust you, even if it doesn't turn out like I hoped. That's the kind of faith that gets God's attention. That's the kind of faith that changes everything. Let me speak into your current situation right now. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're not too late. You are right on time for what God has planned for you. But you've got to keep moving. You've got to keep sowing. You've got to keep expecting. Because what's forming in the unseen is far more powerful than what's failing in the visible. And your faith? It's the bridge that will carry you from breakdown to breakthrough. So pause with me. Breathe. Close your eyes and picture this. Doors opening. Phone calls coming. Peace filling your chest. Provision showing up in places you never expected. Not because you made it happen, but because faith invited heaven to move. That's what you're walking toward. That's what you're stepping into. So if you've been weary, if you've been questioning, don't let go now. God's not done, and your faith isn't in vain. Before we move to part 5, I need you to do something bold. Share this video with one person who needs a shot of faith today. And if you're watching this right now, tap that like button so the algorithm knows people still believe in God-sized comebacks. Because we're about to talk about something powerful next. What happens when the return is greater than the loss? When God doesn't just restore what you had, but gives you more than you ever imagined. That's coming in part 5.
Let me give you a promise that you need to tattoo on your heart. The return will be greater than the loss, not equal, greater. Because when God restores, He doesn't bring you back to where you were. He takes you somewhere you never thought you could be. But let's be honest, loss hits hard. Sometimes it takes your breath away. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it takes everything. You lose the job, the relationship breaks, the dream collapses, and all you're left with is silence, scars, and sleepless nights. You look at your hands and think, how did I end up with nothing? But I want to tell you something today, something fierce and true. Nothing in God's hands ever stays empty, because He is not just a God of comfort, He is a God of comeback. He doesn't just patch up your pain, He repurposes it. He doesn't just return what you lost, He multiplies it. And if that hits you deep, drop a God restores in the comments. Let it be a statement of your future. Let it be a declaration that loss is not your final chapter. Now hear this. Loss is a universal language. Every person watching this right now has lost something. A dream, a person, a chance, a version of themselves they loved. But loss doesn't mean you're done. Loss is where legacy begins. Think about it. Joseph lost his family, then saved a nation. Job lost everything, then received double. Ruth lost her husband, then stepped into a lineage of kings. Jesus lost his life, then resurrected and conquered the grave. In the kingdom of God, loss isn't an end. It's the entry point to something greater. And I know what you're asking. But how do I trust again after losing so much? I get it. When your heart's been shattered, the idea of restoration feels impossible. But restoration doesn't begin with circumstances. It begins with perspective. You have to believe that your pain was not pointless, that your tears weren't wasted, that the thing that broke you is the same thing God will use to bless you. You're not just going to recover, you're going to rise. You're going to look back and say, what I lost doesn't compare to what I've gained. But here's the catch. You've got to let go. Let go of the expectation that things will look the way they did before, because God isn't taking you back, He's taking you beyond. Beyond what you thought you deserved, beyond what you thought was possible, beyond what you lost. And that takes trust, real trust. The kind that says, even though it hurts, I still believe He's good. The kind that says, even though I miss what I had, I trust in what He's bringing. That's what moves heaven. That's what shakes hell. That's what positions you for a greater return. But don't just take my word for it. Look at your own life. Haven't there been seasons where you lost something and what came after turned out to be exactly what you needed? Haven't you ever looked back and thought, if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be here? That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's God. And He's about to do it again. He's about to flip the script. He's about to take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it for good. So yes, you lost something, but you didn't lose you. You didn't lose your identity. You didn't lose your calling. You didn't lose your favor. In fact, that loss, it just cleared the space for something bigger. God is restoring things right now that you didn't even realize were broken. He's preparing doors you haven't even knocked on. He is aligning relationships, opportunities, timing, all behind the curtain. You think He's been quiet. He's been strategic. Every delay, a setup. Every no, a redirection. Every ending, an invitation. Because when God gives back, He gives back better. And that's why your next chapter is going to make the last one look like the prologue. Your restoration will be so complete, so wild, so filled with glory that you'll look around and say, this was worth every tear. But let me make this personal. What if the reason it had to fall apart was because God wanted to rebuild it stronger? What if the breakup saved you from a toxic lifetime? What if losing the job pushed you into your calling? What if the collapse of everything you depended on was the exact thing that brought you back to depending on God? Sometimes the loss wasn't the curse, it was the rescue. Sometimes God has to empty your hands so He can fill them with something new. And yes, it's terrifying to let go. Yes, it's painful. But the sooner you release what's gone, the sooner you can receive what's coming. And what's coming is greater. Before we move to part 6, I need you to take 10 seconds and do 2 things. Type, "The return will be greater," in the comments. Let that be your prophecy.
Tap share and send this to someone who's grieving something right now. Remind them, this isn't the end. Because next, we're going deeper. In part 6, we're going to talk about why your comeback doesn't just change your life, it becomes a testimony that changes others. Your pain has a purpose, and your story isn't just for you.
Let's get something straight right now. Your comeback is not just about you. Yes, it's your pain. Yes, it's your struggle. Yes, it's your journey. But the story God's writing through your life, it's bigger than your personal victory. Because when you rise, when you get back up, when you overcome what tried to destroy you, you become a living, breathing testimony. You become proof that God still moves, that faith still works, that grace still saves, that broken things can still be used. So don't underestimate what you're carrying. Don't downplay what you've survived, because somebody out there, right now, is hanging on by a thread, and your story might be the thing that saves them from letting go. If you know that your life is meant to be a light for someone else, drop "My story has purpose" in the comments. Say it loud. Say it proud. Say it until you believe it. Now here's the hard truth most people don't want to say. We spend so much time asking God to take the pain away that we miss what He wants to do through it. Because the power of your testimony isn't in how fast you got the blessing. It's in how you held on before it came. It's in the nights you wanted to give up but didn't. It's in the prayers you prayed when nothing changed. It's in the tears you cried when no one saw. That's where the glory is. That's what people relate to. Not the mountaintop, but the climb. Because anyone can celebrate when they win. But when you can worship in the waiting, that's holy. That's what moves people. That's what makes someone else say, if they made it through that, maybe I can too. Your comeback becomes a ripple effect. It shifts atmospheres. It ignites faith in dry places. It reminds people that God is still in the business of restoration. And guess what? The more public your pain was, the more powerful your platform becomes. Not for pride, not for applause, for impact. Because the enemy didn't just attack you to hurt you. He attacked you to shut you up, to make sure your story never got told, to bury the message that would set someone else free. But he failed, because you're still here. And you're not just surviving, you're rising. And when you tell the truth about what you've walked through, chains break, shame dies, hope is reborn. That's why your comeback matters. It's not about proving you're strong. It's about showing that God is. So don't hide the scars. Don't sanitize the story. Tell it real. Tell it raw. Because your vulnerability might be the oxygen to someone else's suffocating soul. Think about it. The most powerful moments in history came from people who said, I've been there. I know what it feels like to be overlooked. I know what it feels like to question everything. I know what it's like to hit rock bottom and still get up. That's what people need. Not perfection, perspective. Not filters, faith. Not highlight reels, healing. You're not meant to keep your comeback private. You're meant to give it away. Because every ounce of pain you went through is now a tool in your hands. Every setback, now a lesson for someone else. Every heartbreak, now a roadmap for healing. And when people see the light in you, they'll want to know the source. That's where your story becomes ministry. That's where your comeback turns into a calling. You thought this was about getting your life back. No, this is about changing other lives through yours. And when you live like that, when you let your scars speak instead of shame you, you become unstoppable. Because now the enemy can't touch you with guilt. He can't weaponize your past. He can't convince you to stay silent. You know who you are. You know what God did, and you're not afraid to say it. That's freedom. That's purpose. That's the reason you didn't quit. So before we move into the final chapter,
Part 7. I need you to pause and remember this. Your pain has a platform. Your scars have a story. Your life is someone else's permission to hope again. So own it. Tell it. Shout it if you have to. But whatever you do, don't bury it. Because what God brought you through, He intends to shine through. Take a second and drop a comment. My comeback is someone else's breakthrough. And if this message hit you hard, share it with someone who needs to know their story still matters. We've made it this far. But in part 7, the final part, we're going all in. We're going to talk about why every bit of glory belongs to God and how your comeback becomes a testimony not just of your strength, but of His faithfulness.
Let's bring it all home. We've talked about the pain, the waiting, the process, the loss, the fight. We've walked through the silence, the rejection, the faith it takes to keep going when you don't see a thing. But now it's time to talk about the glory. Because when your comeback happens, and it will, there's one truth you need to tattoo on your soul. All glory goes to God, not to your hustle, not to your intelligence, not to your strength, not to your strategy, but to the one who carried you through every second of it. Let me be real with you. It's tempting, after everything you've overcome, to look back and say, I did this. I made it happen. I earned this. And in a way, yes, you showed up. You kept fighting. You didn't quit. But even your strength was sustained by His grace. Even your breath, your wisdom, your ability to stand after being knocked down again and again came from Him. He was there in the midnight hour. He was there in the silence. He was there in the moments when you almost gave up. And when the breakthrough comes, when the doors open, when the prayers are answered, when the thing you dreamed about becomes real, don't forget who got you there. If you feel that deep in your chest right now, take 2 seconds and comment, "All glory to God." Let heaven hear it. Let the algorithm spread it. Let your spirit remember it. Because what you're stepping into is sacred. Your comeback is not just a personal success story. It's a divine demonstration, a display of what happens when someone puts their trust in God and doesn't let go. And you know what happens when you give Him the glory? He multiplies it. He takes what looked small and makes it a stage, not for your ego, but for His name. That's how legacies are born. That's how movements begin. That's how lives are changed, when people see what God can do with someone who refuses to bow to fear, failure, or rejection. So when people ask you, how did you get back up? Tell them the truth. Say, God moved. When they ask, how did you recover after all that loss? Say, God restored. When they say, you're different now, stronger, wiser, bolder, smile and say, that's what grace does. Because here's what the enemy never wanted. He didn't want you to survive. He didn't want you to speak. He didn't want your story to shine. But you did. You rose, and now God is going to use your life in ways you can't even imagine. And you're not going back to where you were. You're going further, deeper, higher, because what's ahead of you is greater than what's behind you. What's forming in you is stronger than what tried to break you. What's coming for you is greater than what you lost. So walk into it boldly, speak it, own it, celebrate it. But never forget to turn the spotlight back where it belongs. Because without God, you'd still be stuck. You'd still be bitter. You'd still be broken. But with Him, you're not just restored, you're renewed. You're not just back, you're better. And the world needs to see what it looks like when someone gives God the credit instead of claiming the crown.
That's the posture of power. That's the position of peace. That's the beginning of legacy. Because this story you're living, it's not just about healing from the past. It's about paving the way for someone else's future. When they see your comeback, they won't just be inspired. They'll believe again. That's what happens when God moves. That's what happens when you rise. That's what happens when all glory goes to God. So this is your final charge. Don't shrink your story. Don't hide your healing. Don't apologize for the blessing. But don't idolize it either. Every time you win, point higher. Every time someone claps, look upward. Every time someone asks how you made it, say it with your whole chest. It was all God. Before we wrap, comment this one last time. My comeback belongs to God. Let that be your anthem. Let that be your anchor. Let that be the way you live from now on. Because your story, your rise, your redemption, it's not over. It's just getting started. And if you've made it all the way through this series, if your heart is beating a little louder, if your faith is stronger, if your hope is alive again, then do 3 things. Subscribe, stay connected, there's more coming. Share this series with someone who needs their faith restored. And live your life as proof that God still writes comeback stories. Because yours will be one they talk about for years to come. And all glory goes to God. The end.